Hi, my name is Trenton McClure, and I'm going to talk to you today about one of the great philosophers of education of our time, somebody who um, is a little bit newer, I guess you could say younger in age, but his name is John S. Dewey. He he's definitely done a lot for us in our education, the the education program, the curriculum that we in turn as students go through. And a lot of what he did, uh, his theories and implementing it into, um, I guess you could say, society and uh, the way that we are taught. A big thing of what he's done is it's really changed how we learn. Um, Something that John Dewey really focused on, studied a lot on, was a topic and a theory called pragmatism. Um, in a sense, pragmatism is this reasonable and logical way that we think of doing things. It's a way of thinking about problems that is based on dealing with this uh, specific situations. So in turn, it's instead of just learning about a certain principle, thinking about it and pondering on it, and talking about the steps on how to accomplish it, John Dewey focused on how do we take. He focused on the thought of how do we take what this thought is, this theory, this principle that we want to be able to learn, and implement it into the real world, so that we can see how valuable and specific it is for us in our learning. And so I want to be able to talk a little bit more on a lot of the theory that John Dewey has taught and implemented into the educational system. But to give you a little background information about him, he was born on October 20th, 1859 in Virginia. And his parents were Archibald Dewey and Lucina Artemisia Rich. Um, he was he was the third child out of four boys, and was a very young and intelligent guy. He went to all of his schooling and was diligent in that, and ended up graduating from his studies, but then went and enrolled at the University of Vermont at the age of 15. And I don't know about you, but that is just crazy. Um, I love that information though, because it tells to me that he enjoyed learning. He was smart. He was educated. He could understand the principles that were being taught, and he was able to have it affect him in his life. So after being enrolled at the University of Vermont at age 15, he graduated with a top of honors, second in his class, and later on applied and worked at many different colleges, universities out there. He worked at universities at the University of Michigan, Minnesota, Chicago, and Columbia. While there, he had plenty of teaching opportunities, and he was the head of the education and philosophy departments there on campus. And he taught most of the time too. But he took a little break at a time to be able to study more of this theory of pragmatism that I was talking about earlier, and how in turn he could be able to use it more effectively in his classrooms. And so he took time away from being a full-time teacher to study pragmatism more, and later on then went back to the University of Vermont and taught and implemented his theory there. And from there, that's where it grew and gained support, and eventually reached down to us. And so I love what John Dewey has been able to do for all of us, because of his theory and implementing it within the classroom. It creates a fun and engaging environment for all of us. He's able to make a way that teachers and students have to think outside the box, and that he makes it so that we don't get stuck in a rut where we get the same boring subject or the same boring routine in a classroom every day, where it's very structured and organized, which is great, but it'll throw a curveball at you maybe here and there and bring some excitement. So John Dewey really wanted to focus on how do we help our students understand the value of what we are teaching them, rather than just spitting out words at them. How do we help them see how it's related to them and valuable and specific for them at that time, rather than a theory that they may be learning about that will eventually affect them 50 years down the road. It's hard for some students, for people to see the real meaning of what you may be teaching if it doesn't necessarily apply to them right then and there or catch their interest. And so some of John Dewey's ideas of how to implement pragmatism, progressive learning is what he really liked to call it, into the classroom was to think about teaching in a way that it would be engaging for the students, get them up and out of their seats, and in a sense get their hands dirty and learn the principles that were being taught. He gave an example as in teaching, if you're going to teach math or fractions to kids, what's an idea on how you can do that? His idea was, in a sense, to give them all pizza and teach them about fractions, and then in turn have them cut out the pizza into fractions and see how, in a sense, they are actually using that. And so that way it doesn't just become numbers on a board. It actually becomes something that they can physically, and it becomes something tangible for them. And they can see how fractions would actually really go along in their life. You can teach kids about science. You can teach them about the periodic table of elements. But one more effective way would be to get them to do an experiment, actually taking those elements and working together to create an experiment to come to a conclusion. And that way it would be more internalized within them. And so John Dewey has been able to change a huge aspect of how we in turn are affected in our classrooms and learn as a student, and also how we teach as a teacher eventually. John Dewey has definitely been able to change the classroom and how it works.